I am best friends with Cooper, Sephiroth, and Dr. Wily. Always smiley, but my thoughts are red just like my eyes be on. Yep, we get it, we get it, we get it on.
What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from MTG. We got decks and ish. Today, Mardu Planeswalkers. Been looking at this one for a long time. I think it's a dark horse candidate in this format. It's a really, really good deck with a lot of powerful cards. So, let's take a look at it. I'm going to go ahead and give you the Planeswalkers in this deck first. It is Mardu Super Friends. They're taking center stage, so you might as well know about them. I'm going to go ahead and give you all four, and we'll talk about them individually. We've got 4 copies of Gideon, of course, 2 copies of Sorin, 1 copy of Sarkhan, and 1 copy of Obnixilis over here. I have switched it up a little bit. The traditional list, at least the one that's top 8'd, a couple of times in the last month or so. Usually we'll play 2 Sarkhan and 1 Sorin, but I've added 2 copies of Secure the Waste that aren't usually in the deck, but I think really need to be honest with you. They performed really, really well in testing, especially after I've jerked the numbers around a little bit here. That extra Sorin really helps us get the most value out of our tokens as we possibly can, and creates threats for us in and of itself. And we get the ultimate off. It's ridiculous. I like the ultimate on it a little better than Sarkhan's. But Sarkhan is a great, great threat. Obnixilis we need mostly for the card draw, which the deck is a little lax on. Again, the traditional list here, at least the one we've seen the past month or 6 weeks, hasn't played really like Read the Bones or anything like that, but we've added 1 card to the list that will help us draw cards spell-wise, and then this helps us draw cards too. Also, being able to just, bust a creature when it comes into play, that's ridiculous, and through subsequent turns. And his ultimate, again, is a clock, not as pertinent in this deck as it is in some decks, but still an option. Then Gideon obviously is like the best Planeswalker in the format. Maybe Jace once you flip him, but Gideon I think is just one of the absolute best cards we've seen in a long time, Again, tokens on tokens, and this guy you don't have to spend any loyalty to make him an emblem is ridiculous, especially since we've added the Secure the Waste. That's really, really important. We are playing a couple of creatures too that the emblem is really important with, and we're playing Mardu Charm too, which can also create tokens, so the emblem can just get out of control. But aside from that, he can also be a huge dude that swings in against certain decks. He can make smaller creatures, everything about Gideon. The deck probably wouldn't exist if he wasn't printed. Talked about creatures a second ago. Here they are. 7 creatures in the deck. There's 2 copies of Soulfire Grandmaster, 4 copies of Hangerback Walker, and then 1 copy in mine of Pia and Kiran Nalar. I did feel like Pia and Kiran was cuttable. Usually there's 3 copies of Pia and Kiran in the deck, but I felt like it was cuttable. We've already got, especially once we've upped the copies of Sword in the deck, a lot of 4-drops that we really want to play. So I wasn't sure about Pia and Kiran, although it really does work very well. In conjunction with Hangerback Walker, which has got a full 4 of in the deck. Again, Gideon emblems make this thing really, really good when it hits play. It can block, things that fly really easily, but that takes a backseat to its power as opposed to its defense, It's good in grindy games, allowing us to sacrifice not only Hangerback and its tokens, but its own tokens and stuff like that, and bust up smaller creatures. A lot of good things about Pia and Kiran, but I didn't feel like the 3 of at the end of the day was justified, again, especially after I fudged the numbers with the Planeswalkers. So this is what I've ended up with, and obviously Soulfire Grandmaster, I don't have to go into too much. We're playing Mardu. It means we've got a lot of spells in the deck that do damage to them, and we can buy back anything, really, so that's awesome. She's a win condition. And then Hangerback Walker, I've said everything I needed to say already, honestly. Hangerback, super good. I do think that's cute that he's a walker. This is Mardu Walkers, He's also a walker. But he's also good with Gideon emblems, and we know everything we need to know about Hangerback Walker. I think at the end of the day, he might be the most played card in the format. On to the spells, there's 3 copies of Wild Slash and 1 copy of Fiery Impulse. Again, I'll refer to the usual list here. A lot of these decks will play 4 full copies of Fiery Impulse and 0 Wild Slash. I just really, really like Wild Slash an awful lot, to a fault probably, but I love that we can hit them with it, and I think that's great, and it makes it a win condition with Soulfire Grandmaster in grindy games. That's a thing. But Fiery Impulse, I think, is mostly in there to take out not only most small creatures, obviously, but especially Mantis Rider, which can be an important thing to be able to take out in this format. It depends on what your format locally is like, but Mantis Rider is a very important creature. And there's other things it takes out, but mostly just anything small in the format Fiery Impulse is great against. But I don't feel like I want to play the full 4 copies. I want to split this playset with 3 Wild Slash. 2 copies of Silk Wrap in the main deck. Again, just really, really good in the early game. And takes out Mantis Rider, that's a thing, and Anafenza, which we're not as worried about as some other decks, but we're still worried about a 3-mana 4-power guy. That's really important. So it takes out Anafenza too. And any small creatures, that's awesome. Anything that doesn't dash that's small, like you'll see in Atarka Red will play dash creatures, but still Silk Wrap incredibly important, and probably the other important thing to play at the low end to take out smaller creatures, you know, along with Wild Slash, Fiery Impulse, and definitely Silk Wrap. The only poor synergy here, I think, is that, you know, Soulfire Grandmaster can't buy it back or anything, but Silk Wrap is so worth playing right now. Speaking of so worth playing right now, 4 copies of Crackling Doom, just the reason to play Mardu. You know, that's the entire reason Jeskai Black exists. There's other reasons too, but if Crackling Doom was in the format, deck would not be anywhere near what it is, you know. Having them sacrifice their biggest dude is just absolutely crazy, and it just works really well in conjunction with Soulfire Grandmaster. Great to lock out the game, making them basic after you've gotten a lot of mana, but still, you know, it's the late-ish game. It's not the super late game, the late-ish game. They'll have enough mana to cast this every single turn, make them sacrifice their biggest dude every turn, and, you know, 2 life drain if you have the Soulfire. So that's just ridiculous. That's crazy. And Crackling Doom, you know, takes out a Jutai Silumgar. Their biggest creature's usually a Siege Rhino or something. It makes them sacrifice their Ulamog if they're playing that stupid deck. So there's just all kinds of things about Crackling Doom that make it ridiculous. 2 copies of Mardu Charm in the deck. Sometimes you'll see 3, but I like to do 2 because we added the copies of Secure the Waste, you know. We don't need the tokens as much. But again, really good with Soulfire and takes out not only Anafenza, but Manus Rider and all the important smaller creatures in the format. Just the card is ridiculous. You know, and making them discard is important too. So just everything about Mardu Charm is good. I don't want to play 3 or, God forbid, the full 4 of, which you'll see occasionally, but I do like Mardu Charm enough to at least play the 2. A very, very versatile card and kills a lot of the important creatures we're having to deal with right now. 2 copies of Utter End in the deck. I mean, I don't have to explain it too much, right? Utter End is a ridiculously good removal piece for us in this format right now. Not only does it exile Hangerback Walker, but it takes out permanents like Planeswalkers after they flip, infamous Planeswalkers after they flip, Jace, Nissa, and things like that. But, you know, also Planeswalkers that are Planeswalkers when you freaking play them like it's supposed to be. Takes those out, takes out things like Ulamog, you know, just there's lots and lots of reasons to play Utter End in the format. Just a really, really fantastic removal piece. 2 copies of Murderous Cut in the deck, speaking of good removal, right? Murderous Cut is just too good not to play. We are playing fetch lands, and we are playing a ton of spells. We'll fill up our graveyard quickly, and we can play this for 1 mana 90-some-odd% of the time. I mean, literally 9 times out of 10, the card can be played for 1 mana. So, Murderous Cut is, I think, a must-play. Just being able to destroy target creature. Just some of the best text in all of Magic right there. Destroy target creature. I wanted to talk about all the cards that I added to the deck at the same time, you know, that aren't really in the traditional list, but some people have called for, and I also saw the need for after doing some testing. 1 copy of Kolaghan's Command, 2 copies of Secure the Waste, and 1 copy of Painful Truths in the deck. You could play Read the Bones instead of Painful Truths, but to be honest with you, I would just much rather draw 3 cards. You know, most of the time we don't really care about taking the 3 damage, especially if we've got sort of Soulfire established on the board. So Painful Truths, I'd absolutely say yes to, although I couldn't begrudge you playing Read the Bones, but Painful Truths, just drawing 3 cards is yes to drawing 3 cards. And then the Kolaghan's Command, I wanted some recursion, I wanted to be able to get my Hangerback back mostly, and if they kill your Soulfire, which happens a lot, you know, it dies pretty easily, I wanted to be able to get it back, and I really want to play 2 of Kolaghan's Command, but the list is really, really tight. Although I could see cutting 1 Secure the Waste and playing the 2nd Kolaghan's Command. I do think Kolaghan's Command is that important. Kills other Hangerback Walkers too, that's really cool, and kills smaller creatures, deals damage to them. We can sort of make this, we can lock out the game with it in Soulfire Grandmaster. I think a lot of really good reasons to play Command in the main deck in this format. It's super versatile. And then Secure the Waste, you know, again, we fudged the numbers with the Planeswalkers, so Sorin is even more important now that, you know, we play Secure the Waste. I think it's really important to play the card, because the deck sort of plays already like Mardu Planeswalkers, usually plays more Mardu Charm. That's token generating. Gideon produces tokens. P and Kuran produce tokens. Sorin produces tokens. So, you know, I want to continue on with that theme and be able to do the Gideon trick, which we couldn't usually do in this deck. And the Gideon trick is you can, at the end of their turn, not have any permanents in play other than, you know, planes or whatever, just lands, and then the next turn you win, because all you have to do is at the end of their turn play a relatively big Secure the Waste, and then on your turn play a Gideon and do the emblem. I mean, you can go from literally no permanents in play to having just a huge army of dudes on your very next, you know, your next main phase. So, you know, I want to be able to do that. I think that's important, especially with all the other, you know, buffs that we're giving creatures in the deck. 25 lands in the deck. I've cut a land from what the list usually looks like, but we don't need it too much. I haven't had too many problems in testing or anything. You know, Mardu Mana's somewhat easy to make. I wish we could play a few more fetch lands, to be honest with you. But from what we have right now, we can make Mardu Mana pretty easily. Really, I think the deal is I don't want to play Nomad Outpost as a 4-of, but it's really important for the deck. So we have to be honest with you. But still, we make our mana just fine. We cut the PN Quran, so we don't need that much mana, you know, as much as we would normally need. We cut a Sarkhan, so we don't need as much mana as we normally need. Here's the sideboard right here. You see the one copy of PN Quran. Normally, we'd play 3 in the main deck. I'm just going to play 1 in the main, 1 on the side. I feel like it's cuttable. I didn't like seeing it all the time when I first tested the deck. Also, Kolaghan is not usually in this sideboard, but I think Kolaghan's really good again with all the tokens that we're making, and this version of the deck makes more tokens than usual, so I think Kolaghan is really, really important. Here are your power rankings. A very high final score of 69. That is not bad at all. Deck just plays all the powerful cards. You know, every single card in the deck is a very powerful card in the format right now. Minus maybe Painful Truce, but I think it's going to see its day. You know, we've seen it in a few things in Standard. People are talking about it and buzzing about it, but there's still Read the Bones lovers, and I like Read the Bones too, so don't say I'm hating on Read. But still, in any case, the deck plays all the powerful cards in the format and just cuts the blue from Dark Jeskai, you know. Just we don't have to play Jace, which is great because that helps our budget out an awful lot. A final cost of $500, which is still crazy. I mean, that's an awful lot of money, but if you've got some of the fetches already, if you've got your Gideons already, you know, it's a lot easier to build than it looks. That's all I've got for now. What's going up next time? Well, I do want to do a budget deck. I know we just did Mono Red Aggro, but I like to do a lot of budget decks, and I just feel like I haven't been doing enough of them lately, so I want to do a budget deck. Probably, like, I want to do a green beatdown deck, splash another color, maybe a Cynic beatdown. I can see that being a thing right now with some morph creatures and such. So maybe that, but let me know what you want to see. I had a call for Teamer Morphs the other day. I think that's important. I want to do mono white soon, but I don't want to do too many decks with Gideon in a row, you know. So let me know what you want to see next time. I'm working on a lot of stuff. I'm Dad from SBMTG. If you like the content, do the things, please do the thumbs up. It takes 2 seconds and we really need it, you know. Sub if you're new or if you haven't done that yet, that's really cool. And then obviously comment to let us know how you felt about it, because I think this deck really can go all the way. I'm totally serial. Well, as usual, you know my name already. I just said it, Devin. See you guys next time. Thanks for watching, my wizards.